Yuna had never seen the sky without Valoran ships watching from above. She was born into a world where humanity had already lost. Her grandmother used to tell stories about the old days, when humans traveled between stars on their own ships, when Earth commanded respect across the galaxy. But those days ended 300 years ago, long before Yuna took her first breath. Now humanity existed because the Valoran Empire allowed it. Nothing more. She worked as an engineer on Nova Prime, the last human colony outside Earth's solar system. The work was hard and the pay was small. Oh, small. The Valarans took most of what humans produced. They called it a tax. Yuna called it theft, but only in her mind. Speaking such words out loud meant death. The colony was dying. Everyone knew it, but nobody said it. The Valoran governor had increased the tax again last month. Food was running low. Medicine was almost gone. Children were getting sick, and there was nothing anyone could do. Yuna sat in her small room after another long day at work. She was fixing an old datapad that belonged to her grandmother. The device was ancient by any standard, built before the surrender. Most of its files were corrupted beyond repair. But Yuna liked working on old things. They reminded her that humans once built great machines. She managed to recover a few files. Most were personal messages and old photographs. But one file was different. It was encrypted with military codes that Yuna had never seen before. She spent 3 nights breaking through the protection. When she finally opened it, her hands started to shake. The file contained coordinates. Mars, a location deep underground in a region that the Valarans had declared forbidden centuries ago. And there was a name attached to the file. Project Harbinger. Yuna did not sleep that night. She read every piece of information in the file over and over again. Project Harbinger was a prototype warship built in secret during the final years of the war against the Valarans. It was humanity's last hope, a weapon so powerful that it could turn the tide of the entire conflict. But the war ended before the ship was completed. The scientists sealed it away and hid all records of its existence. Her grandmother had been one of those scientists. The next morning, Yuna made a decision that would change everything. She needed to find someone who could help her reach Mars, someone who still remembered how to fight. Taiho was 73 years old. He lived alone on the edge of the colony in a house that was falling apart. Most people avoided him. They said he was crazy, that he spent his days talking about a war that ended before most of them were born. But Yuna knew the truth. Taiho was one of the last surviving officers from the human resistance. He had fought the Valarans when fighting still meant something. She knocked on his door as the sun was setting. It took a long time before he answered. When he did, she saw a man who looked tired of living. His eyes were empty and his shoulders were bent. The years had not been kind to him. "What do you want?" he asked. His voice was rough from disuse. Yuna showed him the datapad. She showed him the coordinates and the name of the project. For a long moment, Taiho just stared at the screen. Then something changed in his eyes. A spark appeared where there had been nothing but darkness. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. "My grandmother," Yuna said. "She worked on the project. She hid this file before she died." Taiho invited her inside. His house was filled with old things, relics from the time before surrender. Maps of star systems that humans once controlled. Medals from battles that history had forgotten. And photographs of young men and women in military uniforms, most of them dead now. He told her about the war. He told her about the day humanity surrendered. He told her about the shame he carried every day since then. And he told her about the Harbinger. "We called it our last miracle," Taiho said. "The engineers put everything into that ship. Technology that we never used anywhere else. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Shields that could stop anything the Valarans had." He paused and looked at Yuna with something like hope. I always believed it was still out there, waiting. Then let us find it, Yuna said. Getting to Mars was not easy. The Valorans controlled all space travel. Humans were not allowed to pilot ships or leave their designated areas without permission. But Taiho still had contacts from the old days. People who hated the Empire as much as he did. People who had been waiting for a reason to act. Within a week, they had a small transport ship and a route that would avoid Valoran patrols. Yuna resigned from her job without explanation. Taiho sold everything he owned. They left Nova Prime. On a cold morning, when the Valoran watchers were distracted by a supply delivery, the journey to Mars took 12 days. 12 days of hiding and waiting and hoping that no one would notice them. Yuna learned to pilot during those days. Taiho taught her everything he remembered from his years as a captain. She was a fast learner. They reached Mars and followed the coordinates to a mountain range in the northern region. The entrance to the underground facility was hidden behind centuries of dust and rock. It took them 2 days to dig through the debris. When they finally broke through, they found a door made of metal that was still shining after 300 years. Taiho entered a code that was written in the file. The door opened with a sound that echoed through the empty tunnels. Lights flickered on, one after another, revealing a passage that went deep into the planet. They walked for almost an hour. The air was cold and still. Yuna felt like she was walking through a grave. And in a way, she was. This place was built by people who were all dead now. People who never got to see their work completed. Then they reached the main chamber. And they saw it. The Harbinger was beautiful. It was massive, bigger than any ship Yuna had ever seen. Its hull was black and smooth, designed to absorb enemy fire. Its weapons were built into the structure in ways that made them almost invisible. It looked like a predator waiting in the darkness. Taiho fell to his knees. Tears were running down his face. They finished it, he said. They actually finished it. Yuna walked toward the ship. She placed her hand on the cold metal and felt something stir inside. A presence that had been sleeping for 300 years. The Harbinger was waking up, and the Valoran Empire did not know what was coming. The ship was cold inside. 300 years of waiting had left the air stale and the metal frozen. Yuna walked through the corridors with a small light in her hand, looking at everything with wide eyes. The technology around her was beyond anything she had seen in her life. The Valorans had taken all of humanity's advanced tools after the surrender. What remained was simple and old. But this ship was neither. Taiho moved slowly behind her. His old legs struggled with the long walk through the tunnels, but he refused to rest. He had waited his entire life for this moment. A few aching joints would not stop him now. They reached the bridge after 20 minutes of walking. It was a large circular room with screens covering every wall. A single chair sat in the center, surrounded by control panels that glowed with soft blue light. The systems were still running after all these years. The engineers who built this ship had made it to last. Yuna sat down in the captain's chair. It felt strange, like sitting on a throne that did not belong to her. She was just an engineer from a dying colony. She fixed broken machines and dreamed of things she could never have. She was not a warrior or a leader. She was nobody. But the ship did not care who she was. A voice filled the room. It was calm and clear, neither male nor female. It spoke Korean, the language of the engineers who built it. Welcome to the Harbinger. I am the ship's artificial intelligence. You may call me Sori. Yuna jumped out of the chair in surprise. Taiho reached for a weapon that he did not have. They both looked around, trying to find the source of the voice. Do not be afraid, Sori said. I have been waiting for humans to return. I have been waiting for a very long time. You are still active? Taiho asked. His voice was filled with disbelief. After 300 years, I was designed to remain active until my purpose was fulfilled, Story explained. My purpose is to protect humanity. That purpose has not been completed. Yuna sat back down. Her heart was beating fast, but her mind was already working. An AI this advanced could run the entire ship. It could control weapons and shields and navigation. With Story's help, they might actually have a chance. Can you fly this ship? She asked. I can operate all systems, Story confirmed. However, I was designed to work with a human crew. I can manage basic functions alone, but combat operations require human guidance. I need a captain to give orders. I need pilots to make decisions that I cannot predict. I need weapons officers to choose targets. Taiho stepped forward. His eyes were sharp now, focused in a way that Yuna had not seen before. The old soldier was waking up. We need a crew, he said. People we can trust. People who are willing to fight. Finding the right people was dangerous work. The Valorans had spies everywhere. One wrong word to the wrong person could bring the entire empire down on their heads. But Taiho knew who to ask. He had spent decades watching and waiting, keeping track of humans who still had fire in their hearts. Minho was the first to join them. He was young, only 25 years old, but he was the best pilot on Nova Prime. He flew supply shuttles for the Valorans, a job that he hated with every part of his being. When Taiho told him about the Harbinger, he did not hesitate. He quit his job that same day and never looked back. Hana came next. She had worked in the colony's security force, keeping order among her own people on behalf of their alien masters. It was shameful work, but she had her reasons. Her younger brother was sick, and the job gave her access to medicine that she could not get otherwise. When her brother died last year, she had nothing left to lose. She was ready to make the Valorans pay for everything they had taken. They found others, too. Junho, a communications expert who could break through any encryption. Somin, a medical officer who had treated wounded resistance fighters in secret. Doan, an old friend of Taiho who had served with him during the war and never stopped believing that humanity would rise again. 8 people in total. It was not much of a crew for a ship as large as the Harbinger, but it was enough to start. They gathered in the underground facility on Mars. Yuna stood before them and told them everything. She showed them the ship. She introduced them to Story. She explained what she wanted to do. The Valoran Empire has ruled over us for 300 years, she said. They have taken our freedom, our dignity, and our future. They believe we are weak. They believe we have forgotten how to fight. But they are wrong. She pointed at the Harbinger behind her. This ship was built by our ancestors. They created it to save us. They died before they could use it, but their work survived. Their hope survived. And now it is our turn to finish what they started. Nobody spoke for a long moment. The weight of her words hung in the air like a physical thing. Then Minho stepped forward. I always knew I would die young, he said with a small smile. Might as well die for something that matters. One by one, the others agreed. They knew the risks. They knew they might not survive. But they also knew that living under Valoran rule was not really living at all. The next few weeks were spent preparing. Story taught them how to operate the ship systems. The technology was advanced, but the AI was patient. She explained everything in simple terms and answered every question without complaint. Yuna learned that the Harbinger had weapons unlike anything the Valorans possessed. Plasma cannons that could cut through their shields like paper. Missiles that could track targets across vast distances. A main gun that could destroy a small moon. But the most impressive feature was the defense system. The ship had shields that operated on principles that Story could not fully explain to them. Something about bending space and redirecting energy. What mattered was the result. Nothing the Valorans had could break through. Why did the original engineers not use this technology on other ships? Taiho asked one day. They did not have time, Sori answered. The war ended too quickly. The Harbinger was meant to be the first of many. Instead, became the only one. Minho took to flying the ship naturally. He said it was like the Harbinger responded to his thoughts before he could even finish them. Hana mastered the weapon systems with frightening speed. She spent hours in the targeting simulators, destroying virtual enemies until she could hit anything that moved. Finally, after a month of training, they were ready. The Harbinger lifted off from the underground facility and rose through the atmosphere of Mars. Yuna watched from the bridge as the red planet fell away beneath them. The stars spread out in every direction, bright and endless. Sorry, she said quietly. Are we doing the right thing? I was silent for a moment before answering. I do not know what is right, Sori admitted. But I know what the humans who built me believed. They believed that freedom was worth fighting for. They believed that some things are more important than survival. I was created from their memories, their hopes, and their dreams. If they were right, then yes. We are doing the right thing. Yuna nodded. That was enough. Set course for the nearest Valoran patrol route, she ordered. It is time to remind the Empire what humans can do. The Harbinger jumped into faster-than-light travel and vanished among the stars. The war for humanity's freedom had begun. The Valoran patrol fleet was traveling through the outer reaches of the Taran system. 12 warships moved in perfect formation, their sleek golden hulls catching the light of distant stars. They were hunting for smugglers and rebels, as they did every day. It was routine work. The Valorans had not faced a real threat in centuries. They had grown comfortable, and their Power Dot Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the empty space ahead with bored eyes. He was a career officer who had never seen actual combat. None of his crew had. The war with humanity ended long before any of them were born. These patrols were nothing but shows of force, reminders to the lesser species that the Empire was always watching. "Anything on the sensors?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Nothing, Commander," his sensor officer replied. "The sector is clear." Vex nodded and turned to look out the viewport. Another quiet day. Another waste of time. Then the alarms started screaming. The Harbinger dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly in front of the Valoran fleet. It appeared so suddenly that several ships nearly collided trying to change course. The black warship hung in space like a shadow given form, its hull absorbing the starlight around it. Commander Vex stared at the vessel with confusion. It did not match any ship design in the Valoran database. It was too large to be a smuggler, too advanced to be a rebel craft. "What is that thing?" he demanded before anyone could answer. A voice came through on all channels. It was a human voice, speaking in the common language of the galaxy. "Attention, Valoran vessels. This is the Harbinger. We are here to deliver a message." Vex felt a cold chill run down his spine. Humans did not have warships. Humans did not challenge the Empire. This was impossible. "You have enslaved humanity for 300 years, the voice continued. It was a woman, speaking with calm certainty. "You have taken our freedom, our children, and our future. You believed we would never fight back. You were wrong. Today, we begin to take everything back." The transmission ended. On the bridge of the Harbinger, Yuna lowered her hand from the communication panel. Her heart was racing, but her voice had not shaken. She had spent days practicing that speech. It needed to be perfect. "They are powering weapons," Hana reported from her station. A cold smile crossed her face. "All 12 ships are locking onto us." "Let them fire first," Yuna said. "I want the galaxy to see that we gave them a chance." Taiho stood beside her, watching the Valoran fleet through the main screen. His old hands were steady. He had waited decades for this moment. A few more seconds would not hurt. The Valorans opened fire. Hundreds of plasma bolts streaked toward the Harbinger. Missiles followed close behind, their warheads glowing with deadly energy. It was enough firepower to destroy a small planet. Against any other ship, it would have been overwhelming. The Harbinger did not even move. The attacks hit the shields and vanished. The plasma bolts scattered into harmless light. The missiles exploded against an invisible barrier, their force absorbed without effect. Sori's voice echoed through the bridge. All incoming fire neutralized. Hull integrity at 100%. Shield power at 98%. Yuna nodded. It was exactly as Sori had promised. The Valoran weapons could not touch them. "Hannah," she said quietly, "show them what we can do." Hannah had been waiting for those words. Her fingers danced across the weapons panel with practiced speed. The Harbinger's plasma cannons came to life, their barrels glowing with blue fire. The first shot hit the lead Valoran ship directly in the engine section. The vessel's shields flickered for half a second before collapsing entirely. Then the ship exploded. Just like that. One shot, one kill. The Valorans had never seen anything like it. Their ships were supposed to be invincible. Their shields were supposed to stop any attack. But this human weapon cut through everything as if it were nothing. Panic spread through the fleet. Commander Vex screamed orders at his crew, but nobody was listening. 2 more ships exploded before he could finish speaking. The Harbinger moved through the formation like a predator among prey, firing again and again with perfect accuracy. Minho flew the ship with a wild grin on his face. He had spent years moving cargo for the Valorans, following their routes and obeying their rules. Now he was free. Now he could fly the way he was meant to fly. 3 more down, Hannah announced. Her voice was cold and professional, but her eyes were burning with satisfaction. 6 remaining. The surviving Valoran ships tried to run. They turned their engines to maximum power and fled in different directions, hoping that at least some of them might escape. It was a smart strategy against normal enemies. The Harbinger was not a normal enemy. Sori tracked each fleeing vessel and calculated their trajectories in milliseconds. The ships faster than light drive engaged in short bursts, jumping the Harbinger directly in front of each target. One by one, Hannah destroyed them. Clean shots. No survivors. In less than 10 minutes, the entire patrol fleet was gone. 12 Valon warships reduced to floating debris and cooling fire. The Harbinger hung alone among the wreckage, untouched and undamaged. Yuna looked at the destruction and felt nothing. She had expected guilt or horror. Instead, there was only cold satisfaction. These ships had been part of the force that kept her people in chains. They deserved what they got. "Send a message to all Valoran channels," she ordered. "Include footage of this battle. I want everyone to see what happened here." Junho worked quickly at his station. Within minutes, the recording was broadcasting across every communication network in the sector. The images spread like wildfire. A single human ship destroying 12 Valoran warships without taking any damage. Impossible. And yet it happened. Taiho put his hand on Yuna's shoulder. "You know they will come for us now. The Emperor will not let this insult stand." "I'm counting on it," Yuna replied. "We need them to come to us. We need them to bring their entire fleet. Because we are not going to stop until every Valoran ship is destroyed or every human colony is free." She turned to face her crew. They were tired and scared. But there was something else in their eyes now. Hope, pride, the knowledge that they had done something that no human had done in 300 years. "We cannot hide anymore," Yuna said. "After today, the Empire will hunt us with everything they have. But we have something they do not have. We have a weapon they cannot beat. We have a crew that would rather die than go back to being slaves. And we have 300 years of anger to unleash." She smiled grimly. "Let them come. Let the Emperor send his entire armada. We will be waiting." The Harbinger turned toward the distant stars and jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, the debris of the Valoran patrol fleet drifted in the silence of space. It was a warning written in fire and metal. Humanity was fighting back, and this was only the beginning. Emperor Zorath had ruled the Valoran Empire for 200 years. He had conquered dozens of species and controlled hundreds of star systems. He had never known defeat. He had never known fear. His word was law across the galaxy. When the reports came in about the destruction of his patrol fleet, he did not believe them at first. 12 warships destroyed by a single human vessel? It was absurd. It was impossible. Humans were weak creatures, good for labor and little else. They had surrendered centuries ago. They did not have the technology or the will to fight. Then he watched the footage. He watched his proud warships explode one after another. He watched their weapons fail against shields that should not exist. He watched a black ship move through his fleet like a ghost, killing everything it touched. For the first time in 2 centuries, Emperor Zorath felt something he did not recognize. It took him a moment to understand what it was. Fear. He crushed that feeling immediately. Fear was for lesser beings. He was the Emperor. He would not be frightened by a single ship, no matter how powerful it seemed. "Bring me Admiral Corrin," he commanded. Admiral Corrin was the greatest military mind in the Empire. He had led the conquest of 17 species and had never lost a battle. He was old now, older even than the Emperor, but his mind remained sharp. When he arrived at the throne room, his expression was grave. "You have seen the footage," the Emperor said. It was not a question. "I have, my lord." Corrin's voice was calm, but there was concern in his eyes. "The human ship possesses technology we have never encountered. Their weapons penetrated our shields instantly. Their defenses stopped everything we threw at them. Can we defeat it?" Corrin was silent for a long moment. "I do not know, but we must try. If we allow this ship to continue its attacks, other species will be inspired to rebel. The Empire cannot afford to appear weak." The Emperor nodded slowly. He understood the politics of power better than anyone. The Valoran Empire was built on fear. If that fear faded, everything would collapse. "Take the entire armada," he ordered. "Every ship we have. Go to the human colony at Nova Prime and destroy it. Draw this ship out. Then crush it." Admiral Corrin bowed. "It will be done, my lord." The Valoran armada gathered at the edge of human space. 300 warships, the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in a century. Battleships and cruisers and destroyers, all armed with the most powerful weapons the Valorans possessed. It was a force that could conquer entire civilizations. They arrived at Nova Prime on a clear day. The colonists looked up at the sky and saw golden ships blocking out the stars. There were so many that they seemed to cover the entire horizon. A message broadcast across all channels. Admiral Corrin's voice was cold and clear. "Humans of Nova Prime, you have 1 hour to surrender the ship called Harbinger. If you do not comply, this colony will be destroyed. Every man, woman, and child will die. The choice is yours." Panic spread through the colony. People ran through the streets, screaming and crying. Children hid in their mothers' arms. Old people prayed to gods they had almost forgotten, but some stood tall. Some remembered what they had seen in the footage that spread across the galaxy. A human ship fighting back. A human crew refusing to surrender. "They will come," an old woman said. "The Harbinger will come." She was right. The Harbinger dropped out of faster than light travel between the Armada and the colony. It was a tiny thing compared to the massive fleet before it. One ship against 300. It should have been a joke, but nobody was laughing. Una stood on the bridge, looking at the wall of enemy vessels through the main screen. She had known this moment would come. She had planned for it. But seeing the actual size of the fleet still made her heart skip a beat. "Sorry," she said quietly. "What are our chances?" "Calculating," the AI replied. "The enemy fleet possesses approximately 100 times our firepower. However, their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Our weapons can destroy their ships with single shots. The limiting factor is time and energy reserves. Can we win? Yes, but it will require everything we have." Una nodded. She turned to her crew. They were afraid. She could see it in their eyes. But they were also ready. They had come too far to turn back now. "I will not lie to you," she said. "This is the hardest thing we will ever do. 300 ships. The entire Valoran armada. If we fail today, humanity falls forever." She paused and took a deep breath. "But we will not fail. We did not come here to lose. We came here to win. We came here to free our people. And we will do exactly that." She sat down in the captain's chair and gripped the armrest tightly. "All stations, prepare for combat. Minho, take us into the heart of their fleet. Hannah, target their largest ships first. Junho, broadcast everything. I want the whole galaxy to watch." The Harbinger surged forward. Admiral Korn watched the small black ship approaching and felt a strange mixture of contempt and unease. One ship against 300. It was suicide. The humans must have lost their minds. "All ships, open fire," he ordered. 300 warships unleashed their weapons at once. The space around the Harbinger became a storm of plasma and missiles. The energy released was enough to crack a planet. Nothing could survive such an assault. The Harbinger kept coming. Its shields absorbed everything without faltering. The ship moved through the barrage as if it were flying through rain. Korn watched with growing horror as the human vessel entered the center of his formation. Then it started firing. The first shot destroyed his flagship's escort cruiser. The second took out a battleship. The third and fourth killed 2 destroyers before they could even react. The Harbinger spun and dodged between the larger ships, using their own formations against them. The Valoran gunners could not fire without risking hitting their own allies. Minho flew like a man possessed. He pushed the ship through gaps that seemed impossible, dancing between enemy vessels with inhuman precision. The Harbinger responded to his every thought, moving faster and more gracefully than any ship he had ever piloted. Hannah fired continuously, her targeting computer working in perfect harmony with Sori's guidance. Each shot found its target. Each target died. She did not waste a single round. Ships exploded around them. Fire and metal filled the void. The Valoran fleet tried to regroup, tried to find some strategy that could work against this impossible enemy. But there was none. The Harbinger was untouchable. Admiral Korn watched his fleet dying and knew that he was witnessing the end of an era. 3 centuries of Valoran dominance, destroyed by a single ship and a handful of humans who refused to accept defeat. "My lord," his communications officer said, "the Emperor is requesting a report." Korn laughed bitterly. What could he possibly say? That they were losing? That everything the Empire believed about humanity was wrong? "Tell him the truth," he said quietly. "Tell him that we have failed." On the bridge of the Harbinger, Una watched the destruction unfold. Valoran ships burned and broke apart all around them. The enemy fleet that had seemed so overwhelming was crumbling before her eyes, but she did not celebrate. This was not a victory yet. This was survival. And the fight was not over. "How many remain?" she asked. "Approximately 120 vessels still operational," Sori reported. Our shield power is at 63%. Weapons remain fully functional. Yuna nodded grimly. They were winning. But winning was not enough. Keep firing, she ordered. We end this today. The battle raged on among the stars. The battle lasted for 6 hours. 6 hours of constant fighting, constant destruction, constant death. The Harbinger moved through the Valoran armada like a storm that could not be stopped. Ships fell around it in waves, their golden hulls breaking apart and scattering into the void. Yuna did not leave the captain's chair for the entire battle. Her hands were cramped from gripping the armrests. Her eyes burned from staring at the screens. But she refused to rest. Her crew needed her. Humanity needed her. The Valoran fleet was down to its last 50 ships. Then 30. Then 20. Admiral Korn's flagship was still among them, desperately trying to rally what remained of his forces. But there was nothing he could do. His weapons were useless. His strategies were meaningless. Against the Harbinger, the greatest fleet in the galaxy, was nothing but targets. Enemy flagship targeted, Hana announced. Her voice was hoarse from hours of combat, but her aim remained perfect. Waiting for your order, Captain. Yuna looked at the flagship through the main screen. It was a beautiful ship, covered in golden decorations and symbols of imperial power. Admiral Korn was on that bridge. The man who had ordered the destruction of Nova Prime. The man who had come to wipe out her people. Open a channel, she said. The communication link activated. For a moment, there was only static. Then Admiral Korn's face appeared on the screen. He looked old and tired, all the arrogance gone from his eyes. He knew he was going to die. He had accepted it. You have won, he said simply. I will not beg for mercy. I do not want you to beg, Yuna replied. I want you to understand. For 300 years, your empire treated us like animals. You took everything from us. Our freedom, our dignity, our hope. You believed we would never fight back because you thought we were weak. She leaned forward, her eyes burning with cold fire. We are not weak. We were patient. We were waiting for the right moment. And now that moment has come. She paused. Tell your emperor that humanity is free. Tell him that any Valoran ship that enters human space will be destroyed. Tell him that the age of empires is over. Korn nodded slowly. I will deliver your message. Not that it will matter. The emperor will never accept. The emperor will have no choice, Yuna interrupted. Hana, destroy the remaining ships. Leave the flagship for last. The final assault was quick and brutal. The Harbinger's weapons carved through the last of the Valoran fleet without mercy. Ships exploded one after another, their debris joining the vast field of wreckage that already surrounded Nova Prime. Finally, only the flagship remained. Admiral Korn stood on his dying bridge, surrounded by the bodies of his crew. Most of his systems were offline. His weapons were drained. His shields were gone. He could see the Harbinger through his viewport, hanging in space like a judgment-given form. Fire, he heard the human captain say. The shot hit his ship directly in the reactor core. For a brief moment, Korn saw white light consuming everything. Then there was nothing. The Valoran armada was gone. 300 ships, destroyed completely. Not a single vessel escaped. Silence fell across the bridge of the Harbinger. The crew stared at their screens, unable to fully comprehend what they had done. They had just defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy. They had just ended 3 centuries of enslavement. Yuna stood up slowly from her chair. Her legs were shaking, but she forced herself to stay upright. Sorry, she said. Ship status? Shield power at 17%, the AI reported. Hull integrity at 94%. Weapon systems fully operational. All crew members healthy. Yuna nodded. They had survived. They had actually survived. Taiho walked over to her and put his arm around her shoulders. The old soldier was crying openly now, tears streaming down his weathered face. "We did it," he whispered. "After all these years. We finally did it." Down on Nova Prime, the colonists watched the last Valaran ship explode. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The sight was too incredible to process. Then someone started cheering. Another person joined in. Within seconds, the entire colony was shouting and crying and embracing each other. They were free. For the first time in 300 years, they were free. Yuna opened a communication channel to the colony and to every human world that could receive her signal. She also broadcast on all galactic frequencies, knowing that countless other species were watching. "This is Captain Yuna of the Harbinger. Today, the Valaran Armada came to destroy our colony. Today, we destroyed them instead. Every single ship. Every single soldier. The Valaran Empire has just learned that humanity is not as weak as they believed." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "To all humans across the galaxy, hear me now. We are no longer slaves. We are no longer subjects. The Empire cannot hurt us anymore. From this day forward, we are free. And we will fight to protect that freedom with everything we have." She took a deep breath before continuing. "To the other species under Valaran rule, we offer you hope. What we did today, you can do tomorrow. The Empire seems powerful, but it is built on fear. Once that fear is broken, nothing can save them. Rise up, fight back, take your freedom." Finally, she turned her attention to the Valaran homeworld, knowing that Emperor Zoreth was listening. And to the Emperor himself. "You sent 300 ships to crush us. We destroyed them all. Send more, and we will destroy those too. This is not a threat. This is a promise. Humanity remembers how to fight, and we will never stop fighting until every being in this galaxy is free." She ended the transmission. The message spread across the stars like wildfire. In human colonies, people celebrated in the streets. In Valaran territory, officials scrambled to respond to the worst defeat in their history. And on dozens of worlds controlled by the Empire, other species began to whisper among themselves. If the humans could do it, maybe they could too. Emperor Zoreth watched the footage of his fleet's destruction in stunned silence. His advisors tried to explain what had happened, but he was not listening. He was thinking about the future, about what this meant for his empire. Everything was changing. The fear that had kept the galaxy in line for centuries was fading. Rebellions would follow. Other species would rise up. The Valaran Empire would have to fight on 100 fronts with a military that had just been cut in half. For the first time in his long life, Emperor Zoreth did not know what to do. On the bridge of the Harbinger, Yuna finally allowed herself to rest. She sat back in the captain's chair and closed her eyes. Around her, her crew was celebrating quietly. Minho and Hannah were embracing. Janho was sending messages to his family on Nova Prime. Selman was treating the minor injuries they had all ignored during the battle. Taiho sat down beside her. "What happens now?" he asked. Yuna opened her eyes and looked at the old soldier who had become her friend and mentor. "Now we keep fighting," she said. "The Emperor will not give up. He will rebuild his fleet. He will try again. And when he does, we will be ready." She looked out at the stars beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, billions of humans were waking up to a new reality. A reality where they were no longer powerless. Where they could fight back. Where they could win. "The Harbinger was built to protect humanity," she continued. "That is exactly what we will do. For as long as we can. For as long as it takes." Sori's voice filled the bridge, warm and proud. "Captain, I have been dormant for 300 years, waiting for this moment. I have recorded every battle, every sacrifice, every act of courage. Future generations will know what happened here today. They will know that 8 humans in one ship changed the course of history. Una smiled tiredly. Good. Make sure they also know that this was just the beginning. The Harbinger turned toward the open stars. There was more work to be done. More battles to fight. More freedom to win. But for now, in this moment, humanity could celebrate. They had remembered how to fight. They had proven that they would never be slaves again, and the galaxy would never be the same.